Hi guys, we were thinking comic books, so we all went and decided to watch Superman Returns. This movie came out in 2006. It's by Bryan Singer.
Yep.
Coming off of X-Men 1 and 2, he brings back some of the actors we've seen in his other collaborations, and basically he tries to bring some new life into the Superman myth.
And fails miserably.
Well, we'll get to that in a sec, but just a quick synopsis. Superman's been absent from Metropolis for a couple years, probably around 5 if we go by one of the subplots. He's gone out into space to kind of reconnect with his past, realizes it's hard to connect with something that's not there anymore, comes back and basically tries to reconnect with humanity. Can he do it? We don't know. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor decides to launch one of his biggest get-rich schemes ever, which is to create a new continent and lease out condos.
It's all about real estate.
Dimitri, what did you think of it?
I thought it was utter crap. It's worth noting as well that Bryan Singer considers this movie a sequel to Superman 2 and not to Superman 3.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I have a huge problem with this movie, and it comes from the fact that I quite like Superman. And for me, Superman is supposed to represent the best there is in America. The same way that Lex Luthor is supposed to represent the worst there is in America. Here you have, in Superman, the immigrant from another planet who's been raised with the home American values, the farm values, and goes out and, saves the orphan and promotes truth, justice, and the American way, really, is what he does. And on the flip side of that, you have Lex Luthor, who's a self-made man who is so obsessed with, being number one and money and all of that, that he's completely corrupted. So it's all about America. And the problem with Superman Returns is that here you have a man who sleeps with a woman, then dashes for 5 years, then comes back. This woman has built a life for herself and for her child and tries to break up that marriage. I don't have any respect for this man. And so that's not Superman. Like, he's truth, justice, and the American way. Not one night stand, breaking up a family and lifting stuff.
I'll go into that because I watched it recently, and I guess that's my complaint too. You know what I mean? Like, with great power and great ability comes what? The ability to see through people's clothes and stare at people. But I think the undercurrent of the whole movie is this really horrible melancholy. Number one, it's 2.5 hours. It's very slow. The scenes are quite long.
Particularly middle.
The soundtrack is all symphonic. There's swells and this and that, but it's just like it's a very gorgeously put together film, and it moves at a very slow, stately pace that doesn't quite mesh up with like the comic book feel. Mm-hmm. The other interesting thing I was watching is that really there's only a couple of characters who have speaking roles. And there's actually a lot of scenes where Lex Luthor might say something, but his henchmen say nothing. And the only person when they're running around is actually his voice that you hear, and everyone else is just, background. There's not even background chatter. Superman speaks, but he doesn't speak all that much. He watches. And he's basically with this superpower. Like, all he can do is listen. He's unable to really participate, and he almost can't even see a reaction to some of the things he does, in a way, because he comes back and tries to reinsert himself into a family. He's looking for a narrative through line, Okay, now I can be your husband. But no, I've already got a husband. But it's because he doesn't necessarily need his newspaper job. It's just a thing to, a cover, a beard, until he needs to run away. And he'll come back. And then they accept him back. There's no consequence in anything he does, except if it's to save a life. But this weird gap between his living and people reacting to it, it just means that people are watching him and he's watching people. And it's just, and you're watching this movie and you're like, why am I watching?
I agree, and it's boring. My biggest problem with the movie is, on top of it not being very likable and having, like you said, this very cold, morose atmosphere, it's terribly boring. All Superman does throughout the entire movie is lift stuff. A plane crashes, he lifts it. A big globe falls, he lifts it. And what gets me is that he strains every time. It's like a globe falls, and it's like, oh, I'm lifting that. And then the plane...
that's the image of Atlas.
Yeah, but hold on. Then the plane that surely is heavier than that falls. He lifts. And then at the end, and it's a mild spoiler, but if you haven't seen the movie, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem. He lifts an entire freaking continent. If you could lift a continent, why is the globe such a problem for you?
Yeah. Especially if
because it hasn't been absorbing enough sunlight yet. Oh, Chris is shaking his head.
Yeah.
No. Like, the problem with Superman is that he is something that inspires us. The people of Metropolis stand with him. But at the same time, he's not human. Let's face it. He's a son of Krypton, and this guy, usually, they have this slow motion shot of bullets like bouncing off his eyelid. How can you relate to a guy like that? Seriously. So there's this conflict. On one hand, it's like, this Superman is awesome, but on one hand, I can never be Superman.
He's just a force of nature, That's
exactly.
Just what it is,
I was even thinking about it recently, are there any characters really in comic book history that really embody power and invulnerability like Superman?
Silver Surfer.
Well, yeah, Silver Surfer or Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. You've got various superheroes. I'm pretty damn sure in DC and Marvel who manipulate reality. But at the end of the day, to everybody, really, just, Superman is it. He's the guy, I need to, chuck a moon, out of the solar system. Who do I call? Do I call Spider-Man? No. Do I call Captain America? Friggin' no. I call Superman.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this movie, and seriously, it is very slow. It is very long. The continent idea seriously seems like a rip-off of the 1978 original Christopher Reeve movie, really.
I'm not a big Superman fan at the end of the day. And the reason being, basically everything I've said, he is that awesome character that isn't
uncorruptible.
He's just
powerful.
Pretty much got everybody's powers, times 10. He can be anywhere. He doesn't need to sleep. He doesn't need to do this. Doesn't need to do that. And the only thing is just this one weakness, a kryptonite, But he's not even Achilles, because Achilles had also anger, Superman doesn't even have that. There's nothing humanizing about him necessarily.
But constantly, every shot that Superman's there, most of the time, he's above ground. He's flying. He's always on top of the building. He's always flying. Obviously, this is like a giant looking down on the ants. Personally, I really hated this film. I didn't like the actors. Hated the little kid. Hated Lois Lane. Probably one of the most annoying person. I did like Kevin Spacey. But I always like Kevin Spacey. I think he's a great actor, and I found him funny. Actually, if anything, that would have been more interesting in the film would be to have more of Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, they gave her an assistant. His
nickname Kitty in the movie. I can't remember.
Yeah. And she's such a great actress. She's an improv actress, and she's so good. And those were the best scenes in the movie when she was playing off Kevin Spacey, and Kevin Spacey was playing off her.
You see, it's funny. I love Kevin Spacey, but I found that 2/3 into the movie, it just grinds to a complete halt. I have this scene where Kevin Spacey is playing cards with his henchmen, waiting for Superman to show up, and I'm like,
oh,
really?
He's not the one playing.
At that point, that's when the movie just, really just...
But he's the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor, not the Justice League Lex Luthor, or even the comics Lex Luthor.
Yeah. No, but the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor worked.
The thing about the Superman character is he's a cipher. You can't read him. He doesn't sweat. His facial expressions hardly change. And you don't feel the passion that he must feel in order to be doing these things. His expression never changes, so he's just he's doing these things, and even when he gets injured towards the end, he falls down in silence completely. And it's just he was going through the motions, lifting up continents, his wings are cut, and he just drops. And it's just you're trying to feel the melancholy, but the thing is, you don't feel anything for the character. It just kind of happens, and you're like, okay, well, what would force you to get back up? Because it doesn't seem like you love humanity.
I think the problem is Brendan Routh, actually. And it's not that he's a bad actor. I've seen Brendan Routh in other movies, and he's actually quite good. But he doesn't quite have the charisma that you need to play an iconic character like Superman, and he doesn't have that subtle, humble yet condescending smile that Christopher Reeves was always able to pull off, which is so crucial to playing Superman. That sort of, I'm looking from above, but I have this warmth toward you thing going on.
I was raised by parents in Kansas.
Yeah.
You don't feel that at all.
Yeah.
There's nothing down home.
Well, you see, this goes to the core of what a superhero is, really. The thing about superheroes is that it's not about the costume, it's not about the superheroes, it's not about the gadgets, really. At the end of the day, it's about the mission. The thing about Spider-Man is that he doesn't get to be Spider-Man once he gets the superpowers. He gets to be Spider-Man once Uncle Ben dies. That's when he gets his mission. That's when he realizes, I have to do this.
Spoiler alert.
Damn it. Sorry, guys. I just seriously wasted 35 years worth of comic book reading.
The best
right off the
secret ever.
What I find interesting is that in Superman Returns, you don't really have a feeling at all for why Superman is doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
In Superman 1, the original Christopher Reeve's version, you get to see Superman's upbringing, and you get to see Superman losing his father to a heart attack. And this is why I really enjoy Superman 1 and 2, because you do have a sense for his mission. You do have the sense that this is somebody who, yes, I come from another planet, but, like, I have an actual human connection. There's a little bit of that in Superman Return in the beginning. He crashes back in Kansas, sees his mom, but then he just, like, drifts off back into Metropolis, and it's almost...
I don't agree with that. I agree with you that you don't feel the connection, but I don't agree with you that the movie doesn't try for it. It has that whole subplot with him breaking up a family because he's still in love with Lois.
But he's not sure how to go about it. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
something very alien about it. Here's this character, and, like, you can't even hate him because he's just there. And it's just...
I don't know. I hate him. I hate him with a passion. He's trying to break up a family. I hate him for that. He left a woman after sleeping with her. I hate him for that. I hate him. Another thing about Superman Returns also is because we're down on Superman as a character in the movie, but none of the other characters really come off that well either. Which is sort of why I think Eric and I are quite attached to Lex Luthor and Kitty there, because they at least know what they are. You know what I mean? They know they're villains.
Well, they provide color.
Yeah, they provide color, and they know who they are, because the other, like, the so-called good guys are behaving like jerks a lot of times. Kate Bosworth's Lois Lane, like, she's in a relationship with a man with whom she has a son who's ready to raise this boy with her, and she's sort of using him on that end while she's flirting with this other super guy at the same time. And it's like, yes, to a certain degree that makes her human, but that also makes her kind of vile. And, she hears danger, and as Mother of the Year, she brings her son to the zone of danger, like, not winning awards. Then there's a boy, I won't reveal how or who ends up killing another character, and nobody seems to be bothered by how that might affect the mind of a 5-year-old. These are all bad people. And the movie doesn't seem to realize they're bad people, and that's worrisome. I always have that problem in movies where I see immoral acts, and the filmmakers don't acknowledge them.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
I agree.
Yeah, there's a lack of consequence in this movie, for sure. I do think Singer's aware of the fact that a lot of his characters are flat, in a way. The Perry White character is just, has Lois around and seems to be happy to have her only because she might bring him a Superman story, and, everyone's compromised to a certain level, and a lot of the scenes are shown through glass, and there's a lot of shots of, like, the windows and things like that, and
It's always shattering.
C+, you qualified as under ambitious. I think this movie was very ambitious. I just think it just didn't hit the mark, and it's certainly not forgettable. So I'd have to say it's B-. It's passable, but I wouldn't really recommend it for somebody who doesn't have the baggage of a Superman knowledge going into it.
C- for me. Noticeably flawed, but remains bearable. Well, it is bearable, but the minuses outweigh the pluses, whatever they are. And I just can't forgive a movie that makes me excited when I watch a preview and just then doesn't deliver it.
Nothing in this movie worked for me, and I realize I'm going to sound terribly harsh, and it's probably going to sound like a sort of like fanboy backlash type deal, but if I were perfectly honest, and this is years after the fact, there is nothing in this movie that I enjoyed. I was either bored or outraged. So I'm going to give it a D-. For me, it is absolutely awful.
Well, for me, I'm just made me realize that I'm disappointed in Bryan Singh. I remember him when he directed The Usual Suspect. I was like, wow, this is going to be an interesting director.
You can't even
Then
remember.
it was, App Pupil. Then he started with the X-Men. 1 and 2, didn't really like it. Valkyrie, thought it sucked. And it's just been pumping out, like, just bad movies and stuff. And this one, I would give it a D, actually. I thought it was just bad.
And that's it for Superman Returns.
Hopefully he doesn't come back again.
What's the next one? Superman Returns?
Superman Returns 2.
He spins around the Earth and makes the first movie not happen.